Hey everyone, welcome back to American Soccer Break. We are here with Rahi. We're here with Roy. We're all freezing all over the country, but hey, we got soccer, all right?
Keeps me warm.
Greatest thing in the world.
So we got a lot to talk about this week. We're gonna kick it off with the young men. Didn't have a great final, but let's get into the U17 tournament. For those that weren't aware, the U.S. men's national team at the U17 level, was in the tournament, and we got to the final, and that's where it fell apart.
Yeah. Go for it, Rocky.
Yeah, it fell apart like it always does to the old enemy, Mexico. And in many ways, at the higher levels, we've started to turn the page. More dominant than we've ever been against Mexico in the past few years. But losing in the U17s has been a constant, and it sort of signals what we talked about last week, kind of where the youth development is, and the fact that at a younger age, the Mexican players are just more skilled, more creative. And as our players get older, the athleticism kicks in. They round out their game. But it's unfortunate because if you watch that final, Mexico was the better team by far, and they just have players who look next level. Look, it's not about the U17s finding success. The team isn't that important. It's really individuals. I mean, because look, Mexico's won a lot at the U17 level. They haven't really won a lot at the senior national level, right? That's not a big thing, but it's about identifying players. So it's disappointing, but it's not super surprising, to be honest.
Yeah, I got to agree for once with what Rocky said. I usually disagree with most of what you say. But this time, you didn't have too many hot takes. But I will say, I will continue on what you said, which is this is about individual players, not necessarily about the collective. And from an individual player perspective, I'm sad to say it's hard to identify the talent against, Panama and Guatemala and Barbados. Like, we shouldn't take anything from that. Look at David Ferreira scoring 4 goals against, or Jesus Ferreira, his dad's David, scoring 4 goals, I forget against who now, and then us thinking that that's the player we're going to get in the World Cup. So that's what we got most of the tournament. Against Mexico, we see the real deal. We see who these players are, how they'll stack up against better competition. For me, there was really only one player on the entire roster who I think is almost certainly going to be quite good, and that's Keyrol Figueroa. Everyone else for me is, but yeah, Keyrol is something. He's very interesting. He could score. He put in some crazy numbers. You compare him to pass forwards in this tournament for the U.S., he beat all of them, blew them all out of the water. But yeah, I guess my hot take is I don't think many of these guys are going to make it to the senior national team level.
Yeah, and the guy you mentioned in the long line of nepotism in U.S. soccer, he's the son of Maynard Figueroa. So just like Gio Reyna, I mean, who knows? He got this level because some phone calls were made and they put him on rosters. So I don't know. I agree with you. I didn't see anyone there who stands out. Cruz Medina's a guy I like. He looked okay. He's young still. He could break out, but no one flashed. But, there's still time. Americans develop later. That's what we've seen. They develop a little bit later than their Mexican counterparts.
Yeah. We had sort of in the next rung up in terms of age-wise, or you can say, I don't know about,
maybe not quality-wise.
Yeah, we don't know about that, but there's something that started this week. MLS. So, Roy, just give me your real high-level takeaways from the first weekend of MLS.
You know what? For people new to MLS or haven't really caught on, this is the time. Apple TV was pretty awesome. From a production perspective, it really blew everything out of the water that MLS has ever done with Fox or ESPN or any of these other local networks. They killed it. What they didn't kill it with was the MLS 360 program. We got to stare at the studio team's butts as they watched the screen behind them for a while. There were tons of commercials. It was a bit of a mess. But from a player perspective, there wasn't too much from Americans. A lot of Americans started. I was eagerly waiting for Cade Cowell this game, and he didn't do much. It's hard to say if that's San Jose's fault or his typical on and off way of playing. He just disappears for a few games, and then he gives us what he gave us against Serbia, which was magic, world class. But yeah, overall, great week for MLS. I lost. Thought I was going to lose a lot of money with that LA Galaxy canceled game. That was weak, but postponed for July 4th. But yeah, not much to say from the U.S. player perspective, unless you caught something, Rocky or Sahil.
I mean, nothing much. You saw the same, Roldan, Morris, the same stalwarts who were kind of probably
They were
aging
good.
out of the team at this point. But I love those two teams, Seattle and Atlanta, in packed stadiums, getting big wins, and that was fun. That's what this league needs more of and can be, is big teams, with full stadiums, big wins. That was fun. It was fun. It's opening weekend, so that's got to continue.
Yeah, I think that's exciting, and I think that brings me to sort of the final point of the day, which is, a lot of our players are playing in other leagues now. The national team players are playing in Europe. So here's the question: is it important, and how important is it to have a strong domestic league? For the U.S. national team in this case, it's interesting how other teams do it, right? Like you have a team like England, Germany, a lot of players playing in the domestic leagues, Italy the same way. And then you have teams like Brazil where you got like players like strewn all over the world, from that perspective. Argentina is somewhat similar in that respect also. So yeah, this is kind of what I wanted to ask you guys in terms of a US lens.
I'll start that one. My short answer is absolutely not. We do not need a strong domestic league to be a good national team. Look at Argentina. Shouldn't have to discuss it past that. Argentina's domestic league is quite weak. It is struggling financially. It is struggling to retain talent. It's surely not buying talent from Europe. So what they do have is exceptional youth development. So they have at the lower levels in Boca Academy, River's Academy, excellent youth development, and they know when to let players go. So that's a big thing that Argentina has. It's a big thing that France has. Again, France's league, I wouldn't put them in the top four. Aside from PSG and maybe one or two alternating teams, they're not a great league. Their bottom half is pretty bad, actually. I've watched a few bottom half games and, oh, geez Louise. It's not fun to watch. So they're arguably the best team in the world, along with Argentina. Both those leagues are not that great.
Yeah, surprisingly, Roy, you're right. I think you gave the right answer, which is rare. The simple answer is no. The simple answer is no. And you're right. All the examples, Argentina, France, you go further, the two semifinalists in the World Cup, Morocco, Croatia.
Jeez Louise.
But here's what I think you do need. I think you need one or two very strong teams. Not parity throughout the league. MLS is competitive throughout, but you need some really, really strong clubs. I thought about this. Think about if Real Madrid were playing against a team from the Americas and you had to choose one team to play them, you would not choose a team from MLS. You would choose maybe a team from Mexico, maybe Chivas. You choose a team. You choose River. You choose Boca. You choose a team from Brazil. In a one-off game, I would not choose an American team. So I think it's important to have really strong clubs at the high level. PSG, for example, in France is an example. But it's not important to have a competitive league throughout. But right now, that's why I'm excited about teams like Seattle and Atlanta and LAFC, because if you can develop a really, really high-end club where all the young talent in the U.S. goes, and that's the best club in the league, that's what I think you need. But a strong domestic league in entirety, no.
You guys are right. I think there's a room in here for MLS, both from a player development perspective and what Roy said, getting them out quickly. But at the same time, I think it's important to have some teams that are just really, really strong teams. So
because who am I watching? If I'm an executive and I'm talent scout for one of these European teams, who am I watching right now? It's a bit tougher. If I'm looking to the Netherlands, I know to watch Ajax. That's who I'm watching. Who's coming through the system? Who can I pick up? It's not clear yet in MLS. And if we have one or two teams like that, there's almost like a pipeline that goes to Europe. And that's what we need more of. makes the
And
process easier and simpler.
It's
Yeah.
by design, obviously, the parity. And I think to this point, you create the progression for players, not only MLS to right now, it's just MLS to Europe. That's the progression. There's no MLS to MLS like there is in France. France, you go from if you're great for a lower table team, you go to an upper table team, to PSG or one of the top guys. Same thing in England, same thing in most other great leagues and most other great national teams. MLS doesn't have that. If a player plays great for Colorado Rapids, you're not going to see him sign for LAFC. That's not really what happens. So they don't progress within the league, which is something we need. I agree.
Yeah,
We need that
yeah.
step and then the Europe step.
I think that's a great. I think it's a great point. As I always like to do, I like to ask you guys, what are you watching this week? You know, it's Saturday, but we got a big week ahead of us. What are we watching?
3 things: Leeds United, Saturday morning, Leeds America. 2, MLS Week 2, and 3, the greatest sports tournament in the world, the Champions League. Not UEFA Champions League, CONCACAF Champions League. You got 4 or 5 MLS teams playing this week. LAFC, Austin, Vancouver. It's going to be amazing. Oh, Philadelphia. So that's going to be awesome.
Man, I have to agree with you again, Roy. I've agreed with you a lot today, but the CONCACAF Champions League is interesting. I'm going to watch your favorite team, LAFC. That's the one I want to see because they could be the new dominant force in MLS. And I'm switching my Premier League allegiance. I'm watching Fulham on Monday. That's a team I'm watching. Leeds is giving me nothing but grief. So let's go Tim Ream, Anthony Robinson. That's who I'm watching.
I love it.
All right, well, everyone's, there's some exciting soccer going on this week. Stay warm all over the country and watch some soccer. Go USA, and we'll see you guys next week.